With the US government finally acknowledging numerous instances of UFO encounters, we thought it would be a good idea to delve into some of the most bizarre alien abduction stories of all time. There's lots to cover from the late 1800s to present day, so let's blast off. Of all the people to make a claim of alien abduction, Hickson and Illuminov seems like a prime candidate, at least on paper. Illuminov is a world-class chess player, former president of the World Chess Federation, a multimillionaire, and the former president of the Russian Republic of Kalmykia. At one point in time, his name was even being floated around to head FIFA, because when you think rich chess guy who used to run a republic, soccer immediately comes to mind. In a story eerily reminiscent of that iconic scene from Back to the Future, Illuminov claims that in 1997, aliens wearing yellow spacesuits showed up at his Moscow apartment and yanked him to a spaceship waiting in orbit. The Huffington Post reported that during his time in space, the aliens supposedly took him to other planets and left him with the impression that chess was introduced to humans by aliens. And here we thought pro wrestling was the earthling activity that most likely came from outer space. Since returning to Earth, he also voiced concerns that he might have told the extraterrestrials state secrets during his abduction. In Putin's Russia, that's kind of a big deal. But the most bizarre aspect of the story is not that these claims were made on television while Illuminov was president of Kalmykia, which they were, but that these claims did not immediately end his political career. As reported by Live Science, Antonio Villas-Boas woke up on the morning of October 15, 1957 as an ordinary farmer and would go to sleep that night with a story that would make Captain Kirk envious. While working his farm at night, Villas-Boas looked to the sky and saw a blinding light floating above him. The light began moving across the field at incredible speeds. When it stopped, Villas-Boas realized that he was looking at a UFO that was now landing on his field. Allegedly, 4 spacesuit-wearing aliens then emerged from the craft and overpowered him, eventually forcing him into a small room on the craft. This is the point in the story where things start to get even stranger. A humanoid female with platinum blonde hair apparently came into the room and made bedroom eyes at the confused farmer. Assessing the situation for what it was, Villas-Boas decided to boldly go where no man had gone before.
You prefer alien love!
He believes the goal of his abduction was to create a new hybrid species, but that nuanced thought was most likely the farthest thing from his mind during his supposed rendezvous. We can all understand that, right? Even human couples forget they're making a baby when smack dab in the middle of the process. One of the more inspiring alien encounters on this list happened to Gustavo Gonzalez and Jose Ponce on the streets of Petare, Venezuela. One night in 1954, while the pair were on a late-night drive, a glowing sphere suddenly appeared and blocked the road. Gonzalez claims that 3 short and hairy aliens came out of the sphere and walked towards them. The exact details of what allegedly happened next have been lost to history, but it is unanimously hoped that the words "come at me, bro" were spoken at least once.
What do you want to do, huh? What do you want to do?
The 3 knockoff Ewoks then attempted to abduct them. According to Gonzalez, one of them jumped on his back while he attempted to stab it several times with his trusty knife. However, the knife was unable to cut the alien's alleged steel-like skin. According to Little Book of the Paranormal, Gonzalez was then paralyzed, quote, by a beam of light shot at him from a tube-like object. The aliens then retreated to their ship and promptly shot back up into space. So to recap, 3 aliens whose species had mastered the secrets of interstellar travel were allegedly forced off an entire planet by 2 everyday men, one of whom had a pocket knife.
Welcome to Earth.
The abduction experience of South African Elizabeth Klarer sounds more like a Sci-Fi Network original than a real-life event. Klarer lived a remarkable life prior to her alleged abduction. The woman studied music, meteorology, and aviation. Plus, during World War II, she served with the Royal Air Force before doing a stint with British military intelligence. Klarer's life would change dramatically in 1956 when she was standing on the ironically named Flying Saucer Hill. According to Klarer in her autobiography, she was abducted by a member of an alien race from the Alpha Centauri system. During her abduction, Klarer met a rather dashing alien named Akon, no relation to the rapper we assume, and the pair fell in love. After a brief courtship, Klarer later claimed she gave birth to a hybrid child who was taken back to the planet Meton to be educated in the ways of the universe. It really is beautiful when 2 people can look beyond their species, planet of origin, cultural differences, and the fact that one of them almost certainly doesn't exist in order to find true love. Most people, normal people that is, cope with alien abductions in the only rational and logical way, go on a lifelong bender and convince themselves they imagine the whole ordeal. Luckily for us, Whitley Strieber is not a normal person. He is an accomplished novelist whose works have been adapted into movies and television shows. After his abduction, Strieber dedicated his life to profiting off of his abduction experience, while altruistically attempting to warn the planet about the danger of alien-human hybrids. So, what happened? Well, on December 26, 1985, Strieber was hanging out in a cabin in the woods when his abduction happened. Strieber, being a writer, did what he did best. He documented his experiences in the novel Communion. The aliens in the novel are described as having huge eyes, gray skin, and triangular heads, meaning Strieber's abduction created the template all further abductees would follow when making their claims. For the last several decades, Strieber has become a celebrity in the abductee community, with numerous television appearances, novels, and podcasts. In 1957, 5-year-old Jesse Long experienced his first alien abduction, which allegedly occurred while he was playing in a field. Long was supposedly taken into an alien ship and escorted into a metallic room where an object was implanted into his leg. In 1991, the object was removed from Long's leg and analyzed in an actual laboratory by real scientists. The results of the testing were interesting, to say the least. Apparently, the object removed from his leg had an unusual surface composition and other interesting characteristics that could not easily be explained away. This object was allegedly implanted during the first of the many abductions Long would experience in his life. During a later abduction, Long claims to have met his alien-human hybrid children, who were conceived from sperm harvested during a previous experience. Rather than take the time-tested approach of claiming his out-of-town girlfriend was from Canada, Long put a unique spin on that story, claiming his girlfriend was from another universe. At the very least, Long deserves some credit for his originality. When making a spectacular claim, credibility really is everything. Miguel Mendonca actually has some, albeit not enough to push his story past the realm of speculation. Mendonca is a green energy expert whose work has been used to formulate energy policy in the United Kingdom. According to The Express, when not attempting to prevent a climate change-induced apocalypse, Mendonca is apparently attempting to save the world from a covert takeover by alien-human hybrids. While not an abductee himself, Mendonca claims to have interviewed several alien hybrids who live among the general population. According to Mendonca, the hybrid's human DNA has been augmented with the genes of, quote, reptilians, Syrians, tall whites, and other species, in the hopes that the human race will be improved in some way. Shockingly, Mendonca claims genetic testing of the hybrids among the general population would only show human DNA. Mendonca's research and interviews have been collected in a book which, tragically, lacks instructions for identifying potential alien hybrids. It doesn't even offer instructions for making an effective aluminum foil hat. Come on, man! Tom Cruise is exceptionally good at running toward a camera. Michael Bay is really good at blowing things up, and comedy writers are really good at explaining to landlords why rent checks are late.
Dude, tomorrow's already the 10th.
Far out.
As far as alien abductions go, former British Ministry of Defense employee Hilary Porter is the best in the business. Porter claims her first alien abduction happened when she was in a fenced-in garden at the tender age of 5. Since that time, she has reportedly been abducted, quote, more times than she can count. According to the Mirror, she also claims that an alien broke into a top-secret research lab while she was working there. In other words, aliens were able to abduct Porter from a secure facility located in the same country that gave us James Bond. This does not bode well for Earth. Porter claims to have had genetic material harvested from her, as well as various medical experiments conducted on her during her many abductions. Luckily, since coming to grips with her abduction habits, Porter has become a celebrity in the British abductee community and can often be found at the various alien abduction conventions throughout the UK. No judgment here. Everyone needs a hobby. UFO sightings go back a lot farther in history than you might think. One even goes all the way back to the years of 1896 and 1897. According to Plane and Pilots, during this time period, there were around 150 sightings of massive aircraft moving through the skies at speeds of up to 150 miles per hour. Airships at the time tended to toddle along at just about 5 miles per hour, and yes, it's faster to walk. It wasn't in an isolated location either, and the sightings were spread out across 20 states. Interestingly, many people claim to have seen human-like creatures on the outside of the craft, and a few claim to have gotten up close and personal with them. Colonel H.G. Shaw claimed he had been out for a ride in the country when he came across a UFO that had landed nearby. 3 alien creatures had attempted to abduct him, but Shaw reportedly made it quite clear that he wasn't going to have any of that nonsense and fought them off. Another tale was published by the San Francisco Examiner in the midst of these sightings. A California electrician named John Horan claimed that he had actually been taken on board one of these mysterious crafts, and he hadn't been probed. Nope, he'd instead been taken on an overnight trip to Hawaii. His wife later ruined his shot at fame when she revealed that no, he'd definitely been at home at the time he claimed to have been in Hawaii. shot down. There are a lot of reasons that aliens might come to Earth, but according to Bridget Nielsen and the members of her hybrid children community, one of the biggest reasons is that they want our DNA. They use it to create alien-human hybrid children, and the HBC explains it like this. Everyone involved in the hybridization program made a sole agreement before coming into this lifetime to take part in the agenda to awaken humankind and reunite us with our galactic family. They add that 5 new races have been created, and the first-generation hybrids are on alien crafts with one of the races called the Shalinea. Most of the communication between the human parent and their children is done, quote, in dream time, when children are taught everything they need to know about humans. Sometimes people are abducted to go visit their children in person, and yes, sometimes are abducted for some good old-fashioned DNA harvesting. There are a surprising number of people who have joined the community to get closer to their alien children, and Nielsen knows how important that connection can be. She is the mother of 6 hybrids: Crystal, Lily Luna, Neo, Tio, Alice, and Twister. She says that she's met some of the men who have contributed their DNA to her hybrid children's existence, and that some remember their abductions while others do not. Yikes. George Hunt Williamson was one of the early UFO researchers, and in the 1950s he wrote a book called Other Tongues, Other Flesh. It's a weird, rambling tome, and in it he recounts a story first told in the Los Angeles Mirror. In November 1953, 2 local electricians named Carl Hunrath and Wilbur Wilkinson rented a small plane and headed off into the wild blue yonder. They never came home, and the plane was never found. After they were reported missing, Wilkinson's wife said that they had firmly believed the world was ending, and that the end was coming at the hands of, quote, strange little men from either Mars or a planet called Massar. She said that Hunrath had stockpiled recordings of his conversations with the aliens, who had given him what was going to be the, quote, new interplanetary language. While the Mirror reported that local authorities were pretty skeptical that it had been a saucer kidnapping, Williamson suggests in his book that it might have been a voluntary abduction. Williamson said that before the 2 men disappeared, Hunrath had called a few buddies to say goodbye. He'd added, "Others have left the Earth to go to other planets, so do not be surprised if I leave soon." Williamson also clarified that the wife of Hunrath's missing partner had misunderstood and that the aliens were actually from the moon. You know, just minor details. So let's talk about the confessions of Simon Parkes, a Labour Party councillor for the English town of Whitby. Incidentally, the town is famous for a connection to Bram Stoker, Dracula, and having their own personal hellhound. Why not add alien encounters to the list as well? According to The Guardian, his shocking confession came in 2012. He admitted that his, quote, real, more important mother was a 9-foot-tall, green-skinned alien woman. He explained that he had known this for a long time, and things escalated when he was 11. That's when his alien mother picked him up for a trip on her spacecraft. And this is by no means the end of the story. The Scotsman reported that Parkes went on to say that he now had regular liaisons with an alien woman he called the Cat Queen. Those liaisons had resulted in a daughter named Zarka, and he added, "My wife found out about it and was very unhappy, clearly. That caused a few problems, but it's not on a human level, so I don't see it as wrong." Easy to say, as long as you're not the wife, of course. In the 1940s, Richard Shaver wrote a series of stories, many of which were published in the sci-fi magazine Amazing Stories, that told of an underground world where a race of creatures had set up shop to control the humans on the surface. It's all pretty epic sci-fi, but here's the thing. As far as Shaver was concerned, it was 100% true. According to the Los Angeles Review of Books, Shaver fully believed that the diabolical Darrow and the kind Terro were the descendants of a race that had once lived on the surface until some fled underground and others fled to faraway planets. His work was edited, heavily rewritten, and published by the controversial Ray Palmer, though he claimed he had kept Shaver's message. According to the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, Shaver knew that Terro and Darrow existed because he'd been abducted by the latter after he had developed telepathic abilities in 1932. And here's where the controversy comes in. Shaver claimed that he had been held captive in a subterranean world by the Darrow, and he'd witnessed firsthand how terrible they were. It later came out that the time he claimed to have been held captive, he'd actually been committed to a psychiatric hospital. Shaver was never officially diagnosed, but is widely believed to have been a paranoid schizophrenic. After interest in his stories waned, he went on to document rock books, which were essentially alien messages he claimed to have been buried inside rocks. When Riley Martin died in 2016, Howard Stern said a special goodbye and called him, quote, one of the greats. Martin had been a staple on Stern's show for nearly a decade, and he spent a lot of that time talking about his encounters with a race of aliens called the Biavians.
The Biavians This is the aliens that came to Biavians?
They are Biavians. They rarely abduct people at random. They have a purpose.
Martin claimed that he had been abducted many times throughout his life, starting with a first interstellar trip in 1953. It was during his second abduction when the Biavians, quote, downloaded the history of humanity, alien insights, and a massive knowledge into his memory. They were a super friendly group who also shared with him hundreds of thousands of different symbols. Here's the really clever part, though. Claiming that he was able to faithfully recreate the symbols, he was more than happy to share the positive vibes the symbols brought via his website for $40 plus free shipping. Not only were the symbols bringers of positivity and light, but they could keep illness and bad luck at bay, and most importantly, they would serve as a ticket. When the time came for humankind to exit stage left, the Biavians were going to be there waiting with a one-way trip to a, quote, distant, beautiful, unpolluted planet. One of Martin's symbols was required to be considered for the trip, but don't worry, it didn't mean you had to go. If you wanted it just for the good vibes, that was fine too. Emilsyn is a small town in the south of Poland, and anyone who finds a reason to visit will find that it's the home of a strange monument. It commemorates May 10, 1978, the day a 71-year-old local named Jan Wolski found himself issued an invitation he simply couldn't refuse. Culture recounts his story. On a perfectly ordinary day, Wolski was taking a perfectly ordinary ride in his perfectly ordinary wagon when suddenly he saw two figures standing in the road ahead of him. They were vaguely humanoid but had finned hands and green skin. Still, when they hopped into his wagon and invited him into their nearby UFO, he saw no reason as to why he shouldn't go, so he did. Once he was on board, he said that the very polite aliens requested that he strip naked. He agreed, and they passed what looked like some metal plates over his body. Then they indicated he could get dressed again and offered him a bite to eat. He declined and headed back to his wagon, but not before everyone waved and nodded their goodbyes. Wolski became famous in Poland, and in all the interviews he gave, his story remained consistent. A monument was erected in 2005, 14 years after Wolski's passing. In 2020, the Clarion Ledger reported that an audio recording of the terrified testimony of two men who had claimed to have been abducted by aliens 47 years prior had just come to light. Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson said that they had no idea they were being recorded as they gave their statement, and hearing it again brought back some serious trauma. In 1973, the two had been fishing on the Pascagoula River when an 80-foot craft appeared in the sky. 3 floating aliens appeared, all of them lacking legs and featuring hands shaped like mittens with claws.
By the time we stood up and turned around, they was there on us all at one time.
When the alleged aliens grabbed the men, they said they felt instantly calm as if they'd been drugged. After the aliens dragged them into the craft and performed examinations with the aid of a device they described as a big eye, Parker and Hickson were dropped off where they'd been picked up. Meanwhile, around 50 people had been calling the local police, reporting that there was something strange in the skies. Detectives didn't believe them, but the new recording revealed the conversation they'd had when law enforcement left. They were terrified, with Hickson saying at one point, "I thought I'd been through enough hell on this earth, and now I've got to go through something like this?" Glenn Ryder was police captain at the time and later said, "I don't know what happened to them, but I know you don't fake fear," and they were fearful. According to Discovery, when Geraldine Orozco struggled through several miscarriages, she claimed that there was much more to it. Every time she said the baby was missing. As it turns out, she allegedly came to find that her babies were being taken from her by alien entities. She recounted how she was abducted 8 times, and during one of those times, she was taken to meet children that she believed were the babies that had been harvested from her. She described them. They're not all the way human, this gray thin skin to a much bigger head and these giant eyes that are so deep and so profound and so complex. What I recognized as I was meeting that child was that it was my child. Orozco believes that her experiences go back to a deal that former President Dwight D. Eisenhower made with aliens. In a nutshell, the aliens were going to be allowed a certain number of abductions, and breeding hybrids was 100% part of it. Her Instagram says that she identifies as a hybrid mother and continues to explore interdimensional contact. Stan Romanek claimed he had his first close encounter in 2000 when a video he made of a reported UFO made the local news. Years later, he told ABC, "What are they? I couldn't tell you. Are they from a different planet? I can't tell you. I know they're not human, whatever they are." In the years that followed, Romanek says he went on to be watched all the time, like literally. He said, "They're harassing me and I can't tell you why. I have no answer to that." One of his abductions happened when aliens knocked on his door at 2:30 in the morning. Another tapped him on the shoulder, and he says he was transported somewhere else to be subjected to a massive data dump of horrible images streamed right into his mind. Romanek claims to have all kinds of proof, such as x-rays of a mysterious implant that disappeared when he wanted to have it examined, or puncture wounds that he said are indications of where the aliens conducted their tests. He also claims that when he goes missing for a few days and checks his camera, he often finds pictures of aliens. The Huffington Post says this isn't the only reason Romanek has been in the news. In 2013, his home was raided on suspicion of child pornography. When he was ultimately arrested, he claimed it was all a conspiracy. Back in 2003, author Michael Meyer had the opportunity to sit down with a Chinese man who claims to have slept with an alien. His name was Ming Jiaoguo, and he was a lumberjack from the Red Flag logging commune. His encounter happened in 1994 when he saw a flash and a flicker of light that he first thought to be a crashed helicopter. He approached the site, but was hit by some unseen force and knocked unconscious. When he woke up, he was home. Just a couple nights later, he was awakened with a shock. He was hovering above his bed and in the middle of copulating with a massive six-fingered alien woman. He described her as having, quote, thighs coated in braided hair, and when he sketched a picture of his extraterrestrial lover, she bore a striking resemblance to the Michelin Man. That wasn't entirely the end of it. Meng said that about a month had passed when he awoke to find himself rising into the air again. This time, he was levitated into a spaceship where he met other aliens who told him that they were refugees from their dying planet on their way to their new home. And while it wasn't possible for him to see his alien lover, they did reassure him. In 60 years, on a distant planet, the son of a Chinese peasant will be born. If there's any phenomenon that everyone might at least grudgingly agree might be of extraterrestrial origin, it's music. In the case of a man born as Herman Blount, he believed that's exactly what happened. He was born in 1914, and according to another man, it wasn't until 1953 that he told the world that while he was in college, he had been whisked away to Saturn by extraterrestrials. It was there that he says he learned his ultimate purpose in life, which was to become a spirit guide for mankind. The planet, they told him, was heading in a downward spiral pretty quickly, and he was going to help stop it. Blount changed his name first to Le Sonra, then Sun-Ra, saying that he was shedding his slave name to become the entity he was destined to be. According to an interview he gave in 2014, he wasn't a man but was instead an angel, and he had come to Earth from his homeworld of Saturn. Music historians have written tons of books cataloging his more than 200 albums of widely varied music, and Paul Youngquist had an interesting take on the whole angel and aliens from Saturn thing. They suggested he was putting a new spin on, quote, the whole harrowing history of African slavery. Slave ships in the Middle Passage were the first alien motherships. Either way, it goes without saying that Sun-Ra's compositions are cosmic in quality and scope. So here's a weird one that history says has been linked to a mysterious ultra-classified U.S. Air Force investigation called Project Grudge Report 13. Two people reportedly associated with the project both recounted the 1956 story of Major William Cunningham and Air Force Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovett. It started when they were working outside of Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and Cunningham heard Lovett scream. When he went running in the direction of the shout, he found a silver disc hovering over the desert. A snake-like appendage had reached out and grabbed Lovett and was dragging him into the craft. By the time security got there, Cunningham was alone. Search parties didn't find Lovett for 3 days, and when they did finally find him about 10 miles away from where he'd last been seen, it was an awful sight. He'd been in the desert for somewhere between 1 and 2 days, and his corpse, which was missing important pieces like his eyes and tongue, had not only been mutilated, but was completely bloodless. The entire thing bore a striking similarity to the reports of mutilated bloodless cattle that are occasionally found and chalked up to weird extraterrestrials. That's the only record of the incident ever happening, but it's worth mentioning that while Grudge Reports 1 through 12 and 14 are declassified in public, 13 isn't. It was Christmas 2001. According to the Limerick Post, Gerry Battles had been out for a few holiday drinks and had been walking back to his home in County Limerick, Ireland, when something quite peculiar happened. He described the event as such. It was a clear, dry night. It was really crisp and frosty, just beautiful. But I wasn't drawn by the light of the stars or the moon, but by a bright surgical white light coming from the other end of the Boreen. Battle says that he suddenly found himself on a spaceship where he joined about 40 other people who looked to be in some kind of suspended animation. Then he was plucked from the group and found himself face to face with an alien that had a, quote, big cone head and beautiful ginormous eyes. When the alien asked him what he wanted to see, he answered that he'd always wanted to see the North Pole, please and thank you. Seconds later, there they were. Finally, the alien gave Battles a message. It was a warning that all life was going to be wiped out when an asteroid collided with the planet sometime around the year 2850. Battles said that they added, quote, that every one of our governments have been lying to us from day one and not to trust them, and then gave this advice. You must use the Force. Be one with the Force. Harness the Force.